Hello guys and girls, and welcome to the very first episode of Justice to Free. From the very first part, I'm going to warn you, I am actually really new at this, so I might not sound as good as some people, but here I'm going to be covering Legend of Zelda Theories. First off, I'm going to give you a little history on my background. I've been playing The Legend of Zelda for about as long as I can remember, and I've played most of the titles, except for Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Spirit Tracks, the Fourth Sword series, and the Oracle of Ages. Oh, and I haven't played Hyrule Warriors either, but nobody really counts that one anyway. Alright, now that we've got that out of the way, let's begin. I'm going to start off my channel by talking about the game which everybody is already calling the best Zelda game yet, and it hasn't even come out yet. It is the most highly anticipated and most long-awaited title in the series, Breath of the Wild. I'm pretty sure everyone who has the money has already pre-ordered a copy, and if I had the money, I'd pre-order a copy too. Now at this time, we don't have a lot of evidence to go by, so we can only just guess and assume different things about the game. Everybody's done it, Celtic, Commonwealth Realm, HMK, but nobody really knows yet. But that's what a theorist is all about. It's about coming up with your own ideas, your own insights, your own way of thinking of how things could possibly be. It may not be exactly the way it's going to be, but it can come close in a way. But if you're already sick of Breath of the Wild and don't want to hear anything else until the game comes out, or if you're just that kind of person who doesn't really buy into these way far out ideas that people have, then I suggest you just hit the backspace because you're going to find what I'm going to talk about a little bit crazy. This is part 1 of my Breath of the Wild series. First off, I'm going to start out with the timeline placement. And go ahead, you can tell me that I'm committing suicide, but at this point in my life, I really don't care. Because I have an idea that I don't think anybody has even thought of yet. I know most evidence shows that it'll probably be in the child timeline, though there are still skeptics who think that it'll be in the adult timeline or the downfall timeline. But there is a small minority out there who think that somehow Breath of the Wild is going to somehow unite all 3 timelines together. But at this point, I'm pretty sure that's out of the question. There are several reasons why I say that. For one, the timelines are also different and would mess up everything if the timelines merge, therefore creating some kind of crazy time paradox. Another thing, it would make it really hard for Nintendo to place new games in the Zelda timeline because they always develop the game first and then place it in the timeline later. Third, there would be no overall point. I mean, so the idea of a unified timeline is no longer a possibility for most people. Or is it? You know, it occurred to me the other day that there are 3 timelines, just as there are 3 pieces to the Triforce. Coincidence, right? Or could there be more to this? Most interestingly enough, I found that the Triforce and the 3 timelines were all different sizes. I'm like, what in the world? So we did several comparisons. And sure enough, it is indeed different sizes in the 3 timelines in these select games that I found. Don't believe me? Have a look for yourself. I'll go ahead and I'll slow it down so that you can see carefully the different sizes. I don't know about you, but I thought that this was like a mind-blowing discovery. I wouldn't think that they would do that on accident, just because they're so thorough in their games. However, you never know. But if this wasn't an accident, then... So we did some thinking, then some more thinking. What if the Triforce split an Ocarina of Time in the last battle in order to keep Ganondorf sealed because he was too powerful. I mean, just look at Demise. You had to have the entire Triforce in order to completely remove Demise from the world. I mean, why would Ganondorf be any different? So as I was saying, what if the Triforce split in order to keep Ganondorf sealed because he was too powerful? And, as a result, in order to keep the seal from being broken, the 3 different pieces of the Triforce were scattered throughout 3 different periods in time. Now this is the part of the theory where it starts to get a little crazy. And some of you may be thinking, could be possible, but there are others of you who are probably asking the question, but what about the pieces of the split Triforce? I mean, surely they couldn't hold the world of Hyrule together. But I want you to look at this diagram that I made, and then you'll see exactly what could have happened. Does anyone get the picture now? I believe that if there was such a split, that whenever it happened, 3 new Triforces were conceived and Lorel began its existence. Sorry, Vortexy Gaming, to debunk your theory about Hyrule, Lorel, and Termina being created at the same time in your parallel worlds theory. It would only make sense why Lorel is not already seemingly destroyed due to the loss of their own Triforce, because you would think that if Lorel was created at the same time that Hyrule was created, that it would already be gone. Because if this was the case and their histories were similar, then their Triforce would have been destroyed around the unified timeline, which was like centuries ago, giving them plenty of time to be destroyed in that time. But here I am talking about this, and you're all asking the question, what about Breath of the Wild? This Triforce split I was talking about wouldn't last forever. It might cause the world of Hyrule to slowly crumble, so it would have to merge back together, therefore creating the events in Breath of the Wild. I know HMK said that there wasn't a power strong enough to bring the timelines together, but you have to remember that in the Link Between Worlds that Link and Zelda both wish for Lorel's Triforce to be restored. If it can create an entirely new Triforce, why wouldn't it be able to merge time and space? It seems that the world in Breath of the Wild is pretty messed up anyway, so I don't think it would be too far-fetched to suggest a unified timeline. Though, there's going to be some of you who are going to disagree with me. But because I'm nice, I'm going to provide you with a little more evidence. I'll bring to light a couple more details. When Skyward Sword came out, it proved one thing. That Nintendo was finally thinking about timeline placement in the Zelda series, and that they were going to start piecing the games together in a way that made sense. So when they made Skyward Sword, I do believe that it was created to be a prequel, and not just another game in which they'd place it in the timeline later. There are too many fine details in the game for it to be a game they developed and then later found a place for it in the timeline. But everyone knows that Skyward Sword wasn't made famous because of its gameplay, or because of its freedom to move around, or because it's excellent side quests in which there's always something to do, but rather because of its art style, and its music, the characters, and the heart-touching story which is woven within the game. But keeping this in mind, we'll fast forward a bit. Skyward Sword was made with good intentions. However, because of its linearity, it became the second worst selling 3D Zelda game in the series. Which brings us to another interesting subject, Eiji Onuma's experience with Skyrim. I don't have much experience with Skyrim, but I know enough about the game to know that it is a game where you can go pretty much anywhere you want to. Which is something that they lost whenever they made Skyward Sword. Because the game was so linear that you pretty much had to stay in your one confined area and didn't have much room to explore anywhere else. Series producer Eiji Onuma stated that whenever he was playing the game, he wasn't looking as to what was in it, but how it made him feel. I think that's where he got the idea of making Breath of the Wild so open, is because he could pretty much go anywhere he wanted to. But, is that all he got out of it? What if Skyrim also influenced him to do Dragon Break? Just like in the Skyrim series in order to make Zelda games easier to develop and a little more interesting. But, in order to do that, he would have to explain such a time paradox, so he develops a link between worlds which has Low with their strange upside-down Triforce in it. Still doesn't make sense. Well, in order for the 3 Triforces and the 3 timelines to be restored to their original form, they must be complete, and then they must have time to produce the missing middle part. Once this is accomplished, then they will come back together to create the huge time paradox that I was talking about. And if my theory is correct, then that would explain the absence of the Sheikah, seeing they are only found in the unified timeline. I mean, the only reference we see to Impa as being one of the Sheikah is in Ocarina of Time and in Skyward Sword. She isn't referred to as one of the last Sheikah in any of the other games afterwards, which I find a little strange. I think that this also may explain the strange bird people that we saw in the Game Awards trailer and in the Game Awards demo. But that's another theory for another time. If this is true, that would explain why the Sheikah play such a big role in Breath of the Wild, seeing as that they're not found in the child, adult, or downfall timelines. Please post your opinions in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. This is Justice to Free signing off, and this is part 1 of my Breath of the Wild series.